Yeah, okay, great. So to start with, let's all the mentors introduce ourselves. So I'm Matilda. I'm a first year studying classical archaeology and ancient history at Somerville College, Oxford. And if the mentors want to introduce themselves.
Okay, I'll go. My name's Matthew. I am at St Catherine's College, Oxford, and I'm studying maths.
Hi, I'm Karishma. I'm a first year law student at Wadham College, Oxford.
Hi, I'm Mihaela, a first year student at Churchill, Cambridge, and I'm doing HSPS.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm a first year natural sciences student at Churchill College, Cambridge.
Okay, great.
Hi, I'm a first year studying classics at Oxford.
Okay, great. Right, I think we're going to start with one of the biggest questions, one of the biggest myths around Oxbridge, which is Oxbridge is all work and no play. So mentors, how have you found the work-life balance so far at Oxford? I think we'll start with Karishma.
Yeah, that's right. So I would say that it's all about getting the balance in the first couple of weeks and just getting used to your reading list, because like when you first look at it, it can look really daunting, but then you later realize that you don't have to read every single thing on it, and you don't have to have read the whole of every like case report. For me, because I do law, you can just read like the headings and things, and when you start to realize that, it's a lot less daunting. And also just speaking to the other lawyers and the other like people in your course, because everyone has the same reading list within your course, and like you can speak to each other about that and you'll have the same problems, but genuinely like you pick up speed so quickly that it allows for a balance, and I've actually found that it's so much more productive when you do allow yourself to have like a life outside of work, because then when you come back down to work, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm more like in the zone sort of thing, especially because I don't know, I used to go out after like say after like 7 p.m. or whatever, and I'd be like, I have to finish this level of work before I go, and it used to motivate me to get it done. So actually I think having that balance is what lets you work more, rather than like thinking, oh, I can only work. I don't think that would actually help you.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, especially I think a lot of people this term, since most of us were at home, found it a lot more difficult to manage time, given we had nothing else we were doing around it. It was definitely harder than it was being at uni. Lauren, what would you say?
So I think like in terms of how you manage time is really quite different depending on what subject you're doing. So I think as a STEM course, you have a lot more contact hours, I think, from speaking to my friends. So your time's more structured, and we do have reading lists, but it's more focused on kind of the lecture material than doing outside reading. So I think for me, I found my time quite structured anyway, which I thought was which I quite enjoyed. But again, I think, you know, just making sure that you plan quite far ahead, and start work as soon as you get it. Don't leave it to pile up. It's definitely manageable, and as I said previously, I think having a good work-life balance does definitely motivate you and make you more productive. So there definitely is time to do other things. You just have to manage your time effectively, and that is something you pick up. So I wouldn't say worry about that too much.
And Matthew, what would you say?
Well, I must say it can be quite tough to start out with once if you've got lectures, lecture notes, got to work through a bit of a reading list and sheets on top of that, as well as not to mention contact hours. But it's really all about the momentum. If you have the right momentum, you can find a nice flow of work from week to week. You can really crash through a lot of work in only a few days. So yeah, there is certainly time to do other things than work.
Yeah, and just to give a little bit of context, I could be wrong about this, but I think that for most humanities subjects, we write essays for our tutorials, so we have a lot of reading lists and things. I think most sciencey/mathsy subjects do a lot more problem sheets with like calculations and stuff, so it's a slightly different structure.
Yeah, we don't do essays.
Yeah, similar workload. Right, so on a similar theme, how have you guys found managing your mental health? How stressful have you found Oxford? Mihaela?
I think from the start it was a bit stressful, especially we had the whole break kind of from last year not doing A levels. That was a bit scary coming in and like doing essays and having a lot of work to do. But later on, there's like tutors. You can stick with tutors if you have certain issues, or like you can go to a counselor. That's what my college provides. So it's quite later on you get used to the workload, you get used to manage it, you can plan it and then kind of see, you sort of get used to it later. So it's not as stressful second time especially. First time is a bit chaotic.
And Rhianna, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is hard, particularly at the beginning, just because you're trying to balance suddenly having this new work to do with trying to meet new people as well. But I do think because of the collegiate system at both Oxford and Cambridge, you are in a tighter community than you would be at a normal uni. So particularly you have a closer relationship with your tutors than say, you know, with lecturers or something at other unis. So you do have people you can talk to, and if you do feel like you're struggling, there's definitely people you can reach out to who will help you.
And another big myth around Oxford is kind of the idea of the Oxbridge type, like the posh Etonian who attends Oxford, and the idea that people who don't fit into that type can't go. And Oxford and Cambridge are a lot more diverse now. Obviously, they still have problems and their representation still needs to improve, but I think people find it a lot easier to fit in than they might expect. So Matthew, what would you say about that?
Well, the problem is certainly going away. It's more and more you see more people with diverse backgrounds, and it is reassuring to think that there's people like you who haven't really had all that much support or even any support at all during the process. So yeah, my advice would be that you're not alone.
And Karishma?
Yeah, so I would say actually that it's not dependent on college, but it's really like based on your college as well. So I actually applied to a college where I knew that there was loads of state school students, and I got moved to another one just due to the pooling system. And like on behalf of both of those colleges, I would say both had a real focus on like just having people from a wider like diversity of backgrounds. And I think to some extent they kind of consider that when they read your applications and they redirect you, they don't just chuck you like anywhere. Because I think like the way in which I fit into my college, it seems like there was some sort of thought process behind it. So definitely when you apply, like think about colleges, but also don't be disheartened if you're going to be like if you are pulled. Because I remember being really scared when I was pulled, but actually like it's not perfect, but I don't think it's perfect at any uni. But Oxford are genuinely really working on it. And I think there's a lot of people there and there's a lot of initiatives that are going on to try and improve access. So there genuinely isn't an Oxford stereotype anymore, I would say. Like you will have some people who potentially fit the stereotype that you've designed in your head, but a stereotype says that it's the majority and that isn't the majority anymore. So I definitely bear that in mind and don't let like any of those thoughts inhibit like prevent you from applying. Because I remember the best advice I ever had on my Oxford journey was if you were to be rejected and you'd regret it more than regretting not applying, then maybe don't apply to Oxford. But if you're going to regret not applying, then you have to apply. And so if the only reason stopping you from applying is say something like diversity, I think you'll regret it more in the long term. Like if you see later down the line and think, oh, maybe if I applied I could have got it. So that's definitely something to consider, and don't let that stop you, in my opinion.
Yeah, and quickly just to explain, I don't know how much students know about how the collegiate system works, but when you apply generally, you apply to a specific college. But if that college has too many applications for a certain subject and another college has not enough, you can get pooled, which essentially means you get put into a big sort of group of candidates and other colleges can reach in and pull out candidates that they want. It's essentially to make sure that people who are talented enough to get into Oxbridge don't miss out purely because they apply to a college that has a lot of applications. So when you're thinking about applying to college, don't just do it on like how many applications it's likely to get, because that won't like affect your chances of actually getting into the university. And on the subject of getting in, why did you guys decide to apply to university generally? And why did you decide to apply to Oxbridge specifically? Rhianna?
So in terms of applying to university, I think like most people, you just want to delve deeper into the course that you're doing, and just, you know, broaden your horizon. I think particularly for Oxford, and I think this does really need to be the main reason you do apply, because at the end of the day, this is what you're going to spend the majority of your time at Oxford doing. It does need to be that you've looked at the course and you generally do like the course. And when I looked at other courses for my subject compared to Oxford, I didn't like any of them as much as Oxford. Secondly, I do think the nature of the style of teaching at Oxford is particularly effective and appealing. So having that tutorial style does make it feel like a lot, and particularly I think in the last year over lockdown compared to other unis who have just had, you know, online lectures, I've felt that I've stayed particularly connected with my tutors. Even if our tutorials are online, you're still having a lot more closer teaching, I think, than compared to other universities.
And Mihaela? Hello? All right, Lauren?
So kind of similar for me, as in I think if you're going to apply to Oxford, you do have to really like your subject. It doesn't have to be everything about you at all, but like you do have to, I guess, enjoy learning and enjoy what you're doing, because then it just makes the experience so much nicer if you're actually enjoying learning about your subject. In terms of why I applied to Oxbridge, mainly actually because of the course. Cambridge's science course is quite unique in that you study like a wide range and you gradually specialise. So I didn't have to choose one particular area of science before I applied, which really appealed to me. Again, though, of course, the teaching is quite unique at Oxbridge with the supervision system, and yeah, just a really high standard of teaching, which I think, especially this year, having only experienced it really online as a first year, I think that has like been really, I guess when talking to my friends at other unis, they're quite frustrated with the standard of teaching, but I think Oxford and Cambridge, well, from my experience, since it's been online, it's been really good.
And Mihaela?
So just to add what was said, I applied to university in general just because I want to do more research into my subject and kind of understand more and look at it deeper. And then why Oxford or why Cambridge and not Oxford? I think it's just a degree. I do HSPS, it's kind of a very mixed course with many different subjects in it, which Cambridge offers. And I kind of liked it more than any other degrees in any other unis. That's why I picked it. And then again, tutorials and having those supervisions, they're really interesting. And you get to do 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 with a tutor, and you get to speak about your subject, kind of stay connected with them, even throughout lockdown. And at the start of the term, I did have some face-to-face supervisions. Those look quite nice as well. So in general, I think it's just the degree, that's why I applied here. And then of course, like I guess many others, the ranking of the university and how helpful it is for future as well.
Okay, so on a quite similar theme, why did you choose your course and how much is it matched up to your expectations of what it would be like? Lauren?
So as I said before, like I didn't really know, I knew I was really interested in science, but I didn't really know what area of science I wanted to study. I think having gone like A levels are quite broad and I really wasn't sure. So that was the main reason I chose my course. There were lots of specific things. So like, for example, I wanted to keep studying maths because I was thinking about possibly finance. I basically just wanted to do as broad degree as I possibly could. So that was the main reason I applied for that course. And I think as well, my course changes quite a lot from year to year. So it's really, I think just really do your research on the course because it's so easy to kind of pick one and just get your mind set on that when you don't kind of realize there's so many other options available. So yeah, that's the main reason. And I think it has definitely lived up to my expectations. it was quite I don't know about other courses, but we had like quite a summer, about 6 weeks in the summer where we did some like preparation. So that was really helpful in terms of like getting engaged and beginning university studies a bit earlier. So from that definitely led onto the course really well. So I didn't feel like it was a big kind of jump as such. But yeah, it definitely has lived up to my expectations. I think all the tutors and lecturers are really helpful if you have any questions. It is quite intense. You do have a lot of contact hours, but yeah, it's really interesting, and yeah, it's definitely lived up to my expectations.
Karishma?
Sorry, I wasn't managing to unmute myself. I would just say that a lot of what I felt was the same as what's been said, but the main reason for me is the teaching. I didn't apply for Oxford because of like the prestige or anything like that. That was actually a bit off-putting for me at the time. It was the tutors, the tutorial system and the collegiate system that literally grabbed me, and that was like the deciding factor. And I think still now it's still the best thing. So I stand by like, yeah, that was probably the best. And I'm quite looking forward to like when COVID ends so you can take advantage of the collegiate system. But yeah.
Matthew?
Well, the people I knew from my sixth form who were all kind of pursued either the maths, computer science or engineering route, they were really just interested in the subject. It was obviously one thing that made them click, and you couldn't make them stop reading ahead, doing other things. Be it, I mean, of course, maths is there's a wealth of stuff, competitions, and maybe something like electrical engineering as well. You've got people who are all into actually making stuff, and so once I decided on my course, once I was kind of set that on a mathematics course, it was really just shopping around. I mean, of all of the Russell Group universities, there was really a great range of courses, ranging from a more theoretical side to stuff based mostly on applications and scientific computing. And really, I just chose the Oxford course because number one, the pace that went through a lot of theory quite quickly, and number two, I chose mathematics instead of the joint schools just because of the nice balance of theory and application.
All right, we're going to move on to a question about student life. Obviously, this year it's been a bit weird because of COVID, especially if you're a first year and you've never really experienced normal university life. But still, what are your favourite things about Oxbridge or Cambridge? Rhianna?
Yeah, so obviously we haven't had as much this year, and there's obviously been some complications, but I have found even so our college have been really accommodating in trying to put on fun things, particularly for the freshers. So we had like a couple socially distanced pizza nights, and you know, matriculation dinners and stuff. So there was a lot of, I found particularly at my college, it might vary from different, a lot of welfare events they put on and quizzes and stuff, which just help you really unwind, and you know, a great way to get to know more people in your college. So I think that, yeah, the fact that it's a college system, there is a lot of stuff that is not related to your course at all that you can just sort of unwind with, and yeah.
Lauren?
Yeah, I think my favourite thing, as kind of touched on earlier, is probably the collegiate system, in addition to the teaching, of course. I think it just like, so I didn't apply, again, I got pulled to my college, but like now I can't imagine being anywhere else. Like you really do get a real attachment to your college. And I just found my college so inclusive, so welcoming, the people are so lovely. it really is such a tight-knit community, and especially when you're in this kind of academic environment, I think that's really, really important. And yeah, it does feel like home. And yeah, it's just really nice. And to know as well that you don't have to find accommodation elsewhere, like outside, after your first year, that scared me quite a bit. So I'm sure it's completely fine, but the idea of living in college just really appealed to me. So I think that's one. And like, you eat together, you can study together. You have some tutorials with people in your college, some tutorials with people outside your college. So I think it's just a really great system, especially when you're moving away from home for the first time. It's really nice to kind of be in, like, just put into such a tight-knit community already.
Yeah, I think the collegiate system is a huge bonus of Oxbridge, and not just like the welfare benefits, but also the resources you get, like college libraries and so on. I think it is really, really important part of the experience. So what clubs and societies have you been involved in, or would you like to be involved in once COVID is no longer a thing? Matthew?
Well, I've joined the chess club, and I'm also part of the society for my subject. There's a mathematics society at Oxford and Cambridge, and I mean, frankly, most universities have subject-based societies, and yeah, I'd really like to go to the computer society if I do get the opportunity to attend in person.
Mihaela? No. Okay, Karishma?
I have. Oh, sorry, go for it.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Yeah, sorry, my connection is quite bad.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, I joined quite a few like the sport ones at the start of term when I was in college. But now because I'm back home, I wasn't able to do it. But I did try basketball for a few weeks, and that was quite interesting. And also next year, hopefully, I want to try climbing. That sounds interesting, and I've seen others do it. It's quite interesting. Other societies, I've joined the UN. That was interesting. They do a lot of sort of online conferences, webinars. That was fun to go and attend. There's many like you can attend, and you also make your own society and like sports. So that's also interesting. Some of them are college based, some of them are university based. And you can meet other people from other colleges. So it's quite fun.
And Karishma?
Yeah, so I was just going to say a really similar thing. There's so many different societies, so I'll go for the ones that I'm in, and then the ones that I've joined, because obviously like some of them I've joined and just not done anything because of COVID. But so I'm with the Wadham Rowing Club, which has been quite limited in what we can do, bearing in mind the boathouse has been closed. But it's quite nice because I got to know like loads of people from Wadham. Like a lot of freshers just automatically joined, and it's not competitive in the sense that we have 2 teams, so it's also just a bit of a social. That was the first one I've done, and then I've done some like more university-wide ones. So I think we have like a random tea appreciation society, which is a really random niche one, but I also really like tea, so that was an inevitable sign up. I know some of my friends are on like a Harry Potter society. Bearing in mind we like go to, well, everyone says Oxford looks like Hogwarts, so it's quite fitting. But there's literally societies for everything, and there's some that are like university-wide. So it's quite niche, but I used to be a cadet, and so you can do like the university cadet. So I was with Army cadets, so you can do that as well. So there's definitely loads of societies, and going back to what we said earlier, I've definitely found that there is time for it. But the only thing I would say is that you need to kind of just have like this organized routine, because like I said, I'm a humanities or social sciences student. I do law, so it's very like self-paced. So as long as you're organized, I genuinely think you have the time to do it, and it's quite flexible in that way. But genuinely, there's a society for everything.
Yeah, there is a huge range of societies. Like everyone can definitely find something if they want to get involved. I'm just going to call a quick 5-minute break now in case anyone needs to go to the loo or get a drink. And just a reminder, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or the Google form. I've already got one, which I will answer after the break. But yeah, just be back by 10:36. All right, if mentors that are here, if you can just turn your cameras back on so that I know you're back. Okay, great. Students, obviously don't turn your cameras on, but if you just put like a thumbs up or something in the chat so that I know you're all back, because I don't want to start when half the people aren't here. Okay, great. Right, so I think that the UniReach people gave a really good summary of the application process, but just to get sort of like a student perspective, I'm just going to go through some top tips that you guys have for the students. So personal statements, first of all, what is your top tip for making a personal statement that really stands out to the recruitment people? Karishma?
I would say with my personal statement, I mean, don't recommend this, but I literally rewrote it the week before. So my first thing that I had, first piece of advice was to make a list of everything you want to put in your personal statement, like a bullet point list. That's not bad advice, but definitely like once you've done that, sit down and highlight the most important ones. Because if the list is quite long, you end up with a personal statement that's way over the characters, which is why I ended up having to rewrite mine because it was just so it was like double what you need, what your limit was. So I would say that like is quite good to have to already decide what you want to put in your personal statement. But also generally just everything that was like cliche, just try and get rid of, because even if it's true, it doesn't make you stand out and there'll be something that's more authentic to you. So every time like I would reread it or make someone else read it, I'd be like, have you heard a law student say any of that stuff before? And if you haven't, you need to say, for example, if you've read a book that everyone's read, I'm going to go for letters to a law student. Nothing against the book. It's just really common. Make sure you say something about that book that differentiates you. Otherwise, maybe don't include it. That would be my advice there. And then lastly, my advice is if you make it to interview, genuinely A, think out loud, and B, just kind of relax a bit. Because I don't know, I feel like when I was stressed, I was saying things that I wouldn't have actually otherwise said. And then in the other interview where I was much more relaxed, it was just so much easier. So that would be my 2 bits of advice, I think.
Mihaela?
Yeah, so sort of similar advice with both the humanities. So I think for my personal statement is go above your A level. So study more, pick a topic that you're interested, like politics or something within what you're doing in A levels, and read around it. Attend some online lectures or online conferences, or like if you can do person, that's fine. So yeah, kind of go above what you're studying in school and show that, and so give examples. Again, if you include any books, definitely read them, definitely understand the books, definitely know what the main points of the books are, because there is a chance that they will ask you about that. Also about personal statement, make sure other people read it. So not just your teachers, but your friends as well, and let them give opinions on that. And yeah, don't worry if you draft your personal statement many times. I think mine was like 7 times. So sort of trying to get the best, and that's completely fine. With interviews, I think I definitely agree with think out loud, and definitely just calm down and don't get stressed. The tutors and the interviewers, they're not there to make you fail. They're just there to kind of talk to you about your subject and just get to see if they would want to teach you. So yeah, be definitely relaxed. I know it's kind of ironic, it's an interview, but definitely sort of calm down and just yeah, think about what they're saying and just try and have a communication and talk with them.
Yeah, I think definitely don't be afraid to redraft your personal statement loads of times. I did a ridiculous number of drafts on mine and it would look completely different by the end than it did when I first wrote it. Just leave yourself enough time to be able to do that without like stress. So there was a question that someone submitted, I think specifically to me, which was if the degree you want to apply for is something completely new in regards to what you're learning, like my degree, classical archaeology and ancient history, how would you choose your written work? I did it, I think what written work, presuming you don't have an admissions test, which my degree doesn't, a few degrees don't, what written work is meant to do is show that your ability to write like Oxford or Cambridge standard essays. Obviously, you're not going to be writing them like at that standard, but the theoretical ability. So I just picked like history essays. They were completely different to my degree. They were on like the French Revolution or something like that. But I picked ones that I thought showed my ability to analyze, my ability to write clearly and concisely, and my ability to like deal with a lot of information. So I thought about the skills that were necessary for my degree, and then I tried to find like essays that sort of demonstrated those skills, even though they had nothing to do with my degree. And I think more broadly, if you're applying for something that you've never studied, like I didn't study classics at school or anything, I did an EPQ on something that was in my degree and I liked it, so I applied. I think my top tips for doing that, if you haven't studied it, are read around it, obviously, find books on bits that you find really interesting, just follow those like subjects, follow those bits you find interesting and read around them, and think about the skills that your degree requires and think about how you've already got those skills, because odds are from whatever you're studying in your A-levels, you probably already have the skills that are necessary for your degree. So just think about how you can demonstrate those skills, as well as demonstrating your interest in your personal statement and your written work and everything. And I think the Bricket Rooms are closing soon, but definitely I'm going to ask, what are your top tips for admissions tests? Lauren?
So I think one thing, I think it's a little bit different for Oxford in terms of maybe your rank for your GCSE results or something when you, but I think one thing I was really stressed about the admissions test. I found that for me, that was the most stressful part, I think, of the application process. But like, really don't worry about it. Like, of course it does go, you know, it is used in your application, but it's not the only thing. So I think just, you know, don't worry about it too much. For me, I think a lot of the tests are really time pressured. I certainly found that was the hardest thing for me. So I think just continuing to just do time practice essentially, because a lot of the questions that you can do them, you know, if you have infinite time, but it's the fact that you're in that you really don't have many, like 30 seconds per question or something like that. So I think just doing lots of time practice, not worrying, like not getting too stressed about it, because it is difficult to balance, you know, your personal statement applying to other unis, preparing for the admissions test and your A-levels and any other commitments you have outside. So I think do get familiar with the question style, and do a lot of time practice, I'd say.
Rhianna?
Yeah, I think I'd say the same. I think the admissions tests are quite unique in the way that they ask questions or the way that they, you know, are testing you. So I do think the best thing to do is just practice. I think it's important to remember that they are supposed to be really hard. So don't get disheartened when, you know, I remember when I first did my practice one and I got it back and it was just, you know, a car crash. So it is supposed to be hard, but I think practice is the best way just to get familiar with the style of questions, or for me it was translation, so the kind of level of vocab, the level of grammar that is required, just to sort of get familiar with it. But yeah, as Lauren said, it is just one part of the application process. So it's not something to, you know, get too stressed about, because everyone's in a similar position where it is quite foreign to everyone applying.
The rooms will be closing shortly. The final question I want to discuss is, what should Year 12s be doing now to prepare for Oxbridge? I would say, from my perspective, the most important thing that you should be doing is just kind of developing an interest. Like, you look at your degree, look at what they study and think, I think that's interesting. I'm going to find a book or an article, I'm going to read about it. I'm just going to explore it. Like, you don't have to necessarily have a really targeted plan of how you're going to be reading. Just be exploring and developing interest, because that is the number one most important thing they're looking for when you apply. If you have that interest, you have a really good chance, and you can demonstrate that interest, you have a good chance. And Matthew, you haven't answered yet this time, so if you want to give a quick answer to that as well.
Well, something really beneficial that lots of people can do is go out there and find a competition, such as science Olympiads, essay competitions, and I think practicing those really does dividends, not only for your application, because it's something you can put in your statement, not only for the interview and your admissions test, but also for the sake of your future progression.